What if the grocery store closed for months? No fresh produce, no canned goods, nothing. For the Amish, that's not a problem. It's how they live. Every spring they grow food, not just for summer meals, but to survive the long freezing winter. No freezers, no stocked up supermarkets, just smart planning and old school know-how. These 20 foods aren't just about eating, they're about surviving. And the way they do it? Simple, clever, and built to last. Most people think of garlic as just a cooking ingredient, a little something to spice up pasta or season meat. But for the Amish, garlic is much more than flavor. It's a survival food. And not just any garlic. They use a special kind called hardneck garlic. It's stronger, sharper, and tougher than the kind most people buy at the store. The Amish plant this garlic in early spring just as the soil thaws and softens. It needs the cool weather to start growing right. By summer, it sends up tall green stalks called scapes that curl and twist like little plant spirals. Some Amish families harvest those scapes for stir-fries or pickles, but the real treasure is below the soil, big firm bulbs that are packed with punch. Why hardneck? Because it's made for storage. The cloves are tightly wrapped and resist rot better than softneck types. Once the bulbs are pulled from the ground, they're cleaned and hung in bunches from the rafters, up in barns, pantries, or cool, dark rooms where the air flows. No fridge, no plastic bag, just air and time. And yet, these bulbs can last through the heart of winter without going bad. But there's more to it than lasting long. Hardneck garlic also packs more flavor. It's hotter, richer, and more complex. That makes it perfect for winter foods like stews, soups, or pickled vegetables. When there's no fresh produce in the garden and the snow is falling hard, just one clove of this garlic can bring a whole meal to life. Some Amish even use garlic for health, not just food. They crush raw cloves and mix them with honey or vinegar as a natural remedy for colds or infections. Others mix it into salves and rubs. The garlic they plant in spring becomes a powerful tool during flu season. Hardneck garlic is simple, strong, and built for long seasons. It's not just a flavor boost. It's a food that holds its value, feeds families, and fights off the cold in more ways than one. That's why Amish gardens never go without it when spring arrives. Not all corn is sweet and soft like the kind people eat at barbecues. The Amish grow a special kind called dent corn. It's tough, starchy, and not sweet at all. You don't eat it off the cob, you dry it, store it, and grind it into something useful. And when winter hits hard, dent corn becomes one of the most important foods on the Amish table. Dent corn gets its name from the little dent on the top of each kernel when it dries. It's planted in spring just like sweet corn, but it's left to grow tall and strong until late in the season. By fall, the husks are brown and the ears are full of dry, solid kernels. That's when the real work begins. The Amish pick it by hand or with simple machines, then leave it to dry even more. Sometimes they hang the ears from rafters or spread them out in warm, breezy barns. Once the kernels are rock hard, they're ready for the next step, grinding. Dent corn is perfect for making cornmeal. It's crushed into a fine powder that can be used in all kinds of meals. Hot corn mush for breakfast, cornbread for dinner, and hearty porridge on cold nights. When there's no fresh bread or store-bought snacks, a sack of cornmeal can feed a family for weeks. And it's not just human food. Some Amish families mix dent corn with other grains to feed their animals through winter. Chickens, pigs, and even horses can benefit from it. Nothing is wasted. What makes dent corn so special is how long it lasts. Once it's dry and stored in sacks or barrels, it can stay good for years if kept cool and dry. No fridge needed, no freezer, just careful storage and planning. Some Amish even make their own cornmeal mills powered by hand or horse. It's hard work, but it means they never have to rely on outside food when the snow is deep and the roads are closed. Dent corn is more than a crop. It's a winter solution. Grown in the warm days of spring, saved in the dry air of fall, and eaten in the hardest months of the year. It's simple, it's tough, and for the Amish, it's one of the most important foods they grow. Beets might not look like much, just round, reddish roots with leafy tops. But in Amish life, they're one of the most powerful foods for surviving winter. Not because they're fancy, but because they last. When most vegetables rot or wilt, beets stay strong. And the secret is in how they're grown and stored. In early spring, Amish families prepare the soil and plant their beet seeds deep in the ground. These aren't the tiny baby beets people eat in salads. These are large, thick-skinned storage beets, grown to be tough, not pretty. They spend months underground soaking up minerals and growing firm. By the end of summer or early fall, the beet tops begin to yellow. That's the sign it's time to pull them up. But instead of throwing them in the fridge or freezer like most people might, the Amish do something different. They take their beets to the root cellar. A root cellar is like a natural refrigerator. It's usually underground, where the temperature stays cool and steady all year. Inside, Amish families pack their beets in layers of sand or sawdust. This keeps out air and moisture, which helps stop the beets from rotting. No machines, no electricity, just smart storage. Beets kept this way can last for months, sometimes until spring returns. Even deep into winter, they stay firm and flavorful. They can be boiled, roasted, pickled, or shredded for slaws and soups. Some Amish families even can them in jars with vinegar and sugar for a sweet and sour treat. Besides being tasty, beets are full of nutrients. They help clean the blood and give energy. During winter, when colds and flu are more common, beets give the body a natural boost. That's why they're more than just a vegetable. They're a form of medicine, and nothing goes to waste. The beet tops, when fresh, can be cooked like spinach or fed to animals. Even the peels can be tossed into compost for the next spring's soil. Storage beets may not grab attention, but they're silent heroes in Amish survival. Grown with care, stored with tradition, and eaten with purpose, they're proof that sometimes the simplest things are the strongest. Most people think of cabbage as a side dish or a slaw, but in the Amish world, it's a survival tool. Especially heirloom cabbage, the kind that grows big, stores well, and turns into one of the most important winter foods of all, sauerkraut. The Amish plant these cabbages in early spring while the soil is still cool. Heirloom varieties grow slow and steady. They don't shoot up fast like modern ones. Instead, they form tight, heavy heads that are packed with layers of crisp, pale green leaves. These cabbages are old-fashioned, but that's what makes them valuable. By late summer or early fall, the heads are full and firm. That's when the real work starts. Amish women and men gather the cabbages, wash them, slice them thin, and pack them into large crocks or barrels. They mix in just the right amount of salt, press the mixture down, and cover it. Then comes the wait. Over the next few weeks, the cabbage begins to ferment. That means good bacteria grow and change the cabbage into sauerkraut. This process not only gives it a sour taste, it also makes it last for months without spoiling. Even better, it increases the health benefits. Sauerkraut is rich in vitamin C, which helps fight off illness. In the past, sailors used it to stop scurvy. The Amish use it to stay healthy in winter when fresh fruits are hard to find. A spoonful a day can keep the body strong when cold winds blow and the garden is frozen solid. What makes heirloom cabbage special is that it's perfect for this kind of work. Its leaves hold up during fermentation and don't turn mushy. The heads are big enough to feed large families, and they grow well without chemicals or sprays. They've been passed down for generations because they work. Some Amish families add other vegetables like carrots or apples to their kraut for extra flavor. Others jar it up once it's done fermenting and store it in cellars or pantries. No power, no freezer, just natural food, made the old way. Heirloom cabbage isn't flashy, but it's a lifeline. It turns a humble plant into a powerful, long-lasting meal. And for Amish families, it's not just about eating. It's about preserving tradition and staying strong through the hardest months of the year. When most people think of pumpkins, they picture big orange ones carved for Halloween. But those pumpkins are watery, stringy, and not very good for eating. The Amish grow a very different kind, pie pumpkins. These are smaller, sweeter, and grown with one thing in mind, lasting through winter and filling the table with warm homemade desserts. Pie pumpkins are planted in spring once the danger of frost has passed. They need a sunny spot and lots of space to grow because their vines stretch far. All summer long, these vines spread across Amish gardens, and by early fall, they produce round, smooth pumpkins with deep orange flesh inside. These aren't just for decoration. The flesh of a pie pumpkin is thick and creamy. It's perfect for making rich pumpkin pies, hearty soups, and sweet pumpkin butter. And best of all, they store well. Amish families cure the pumpkins in a warm, dry place for about a week to harden the skin. Then they move them to cool cellars or pantry shelves, where the pumpkins can sit for months without spoiling. No fridge, no freezer, just nature doing its job. When cold weather hits and fresh food is scarce, a pie pumpkin becomes a treasure. It's sliced open, roasted or boiled, and mashed into soft, sweet puree. That puree is used in pies, muffins, and custards. Some families make pumpkin butter, a thick, sweet spread that's cooked down with spices and sealed in jars. Pie pumpkins also go beyond dessert. The Amish add them to soups and stews for extra flavor and nutrition. The seeds are cleaned, roasted, and salted for snacks. Even the empty shells can be used as bowls or composted to feed next year's garden. Because they're so reliable and store so well, pie pumpkins are planted with care and purpose. They're a food that stretches far, tastes good, and brings comfort when the snow is deep and the nights are long. In Amish homes, a single pumpkin grown in spring can help make winter warmer, sweeter, and a little more joyful. Not all carrots are the same. Some are soft and spoil fast. Others are bred for long journeys, from garden to storage to table, even months later. The Amish grow a special kind called winter keepers. These carrots are made to last, and they play a big role in helping families stay fed long after the garden is frozen. The seeds go into the ground early in spring, as soon as the soil is loose and cool. The carrots take their time, growing deep and strong. Unlike the small, tender ones sold in plastic bags at stores, winter keepers grow longer, thicker, and develop tougher skins. That makes them perfect for storage. Once they reach full size, usually by late summer or early fall, they're gently pulled from the earth. But instead of going into the fridge, Amish families pack them in boxes of sand, straw, or sawdust. These boxes are kept in root cellars or unheated basements where the temperature stays low but doesn't freeze. And here's the amazing part. These carrots stay crisp for months. Some last all the way into March. Even after weeks in the cellar, they're still crunchy and sweet. No mold, no rot. Just clean, solid food ready to eat. Winter carrots aren't just used raw. The Amish slice them into soups, stews, and pot roasts. They're boiled with potatoes, shredded into slaws, or glazed with butter and sugar for a simple dessert. In cold months, when there's no fresh garden food, these carrots bring a taste of spring back to the table. Kids eat them like snacks. Adults cook them into meals. Some families even juice them or make carrot cake from scratch. And because they're grown naturally and stored without chemicals, they're healthy and safe. Nothing is wasted. Carrot tops can be fed to chickens or turned into compost. Leftover peels go into the soil to feed next year's crop. In a world where most food goes bad in days, winter keeper carrots are a quiet miracle. Grown with patience, stored with care, and eaten with gratitude, they remind Amish families that a smart spring can lead to a strong winter. When meat is scarce or saved for special occasions, the Amish turn to something just as filling: soup beans. These aren't the soft canned beans most people buy from stores. These are dry beans grown from the soil, harvested by hand, and stored to last all year, and they're packed with protein. In spring, Amish farmers plant special kinds of beans like Jacob's cattle, pinto, or kidney beans. These aren't meant to be picked early and eaten fresh. Instead, the beans are left to fully mature on the vine. Over the summer, the plants grow tall and strong, forming pods filled with colorful, sturdy beans inside. As fall approaches, the pods begin to dry out right on the plant. That's the sign they're ready. Amish families pick the plants and hang them in warm, dry barns to finish drying. When the pods are crisp and crack open easily, the beans inside are collected, cleaned, and stored in sacks or glass jars. No refrigeration, no preservatives, just dry air and good storage. What makes soup beans so valuable is their staying power. Once dried, they can last for years without going bad. And they're full of protein, fiber, and energy. Perfect for cold winter days when gardens are bare and meat is hard to come by. The Amish use these beans in dozens of ways. They cook them into thick soups, mash them into spreads, or bake them with molasses and onions. Just a cup of beans can make a meal that sticks to your ribs and keeps you going for hours. They're also easy to cook in big batches to feed large families. Some beans, like Jacob's cattle, are heirlooms, passed down for generations. They grow well without chemicals and stay hardy in tough soil. Others are chosen for how quickly they cook or how rich they taste. And because they're dried, these beans take up little space and cost almost nothing to store. A cool, dark shelf can hold a family's supply for the whole winter. Soup beans are more than food. They're a safety net. Grown in spring, saved in fall, and used all winter long, they prove that meatless meals can still be full of power and comfort. Parsnips might not be the first vegetable that comes to mind, but in Amish homes, they're a winter favorite. They look like white carrots, but they have a deeper, earthier flavor. And here's the trick. The colder it gets, the better they taste. Amish families plant parsnip seeds early in the spring, as soon as the soil can be worked. The seeds take a while to sprout, but once they do, the plants grow long roots that dig deep into the earth. All summer long, the parsnips stay underground, quietly growing thicker and stronger. Then comes fall. While most vegetables are picked before the first frost, parsnips are left right where they are. That's because cold temperatures change them. When frost hits the soil, it turns the starch in parsnips into sugar. That makes them sweeter, almost like they've been naturally seasoned by the weather. Some Amish families even wait until after the first snowfall to dig them up. With gloves and shovels, they pull the roots from the frozen ground, wash them, and bring them inside. Others leave them in the soil longer and harvest them throughout winter when needed. Parsnips are used in all kinds of hearty meals. They're roasted alongside potatoes and carrots, added to stews or mashed like turnips. Some people even bake them into pies or slice them into chips. Their sweet, nutty taste makes them a favorite when other flavors are hard to find. Because parsnips can stay in the ground so long, they don't need special storage. That makes them perfect for families without big cellars or storage rooms. And since they grow well in cooler climates, they're a reliable crop even in tough years. They're also healthy, full of vitamins and fiber. In winter, when fresh greens are hard to come by, parsnips help keep Amish families strong and well-fed. This humble root is proof that good things come to those who wait. Grown with patience, sweetened by frost, and dug up by hand, parsnips bring warmth to cold meals. They turn freezing temperatures into flavor, and that's something no store-bought veggie can do. Some foods do more than fill the stomach. They help heal the body. That's why the Amish grow horseradish. It's not just a spicy root for flavor. It's a powerful winter remedy, planted with purpose in spring and saved for the hardest months of the year. In early spring, Amish families dig narrow rows and plant small pieces of horseradish root deep in the soil. The plant doesn't look like much on the surface, just big green leaves waving in the breeze, but underground something strong is growing. Over months, the roots grow thick, long, and packed with a fiery punch. Come late fall, when most of the garden is empty, horseradish is ready to be pulled. But this is no gentle harvest. The roots are dug with effort, sometimes going over a foot deep. Once lifted, they're washed, peeled, and either used fresh or stored in damp sand to stay crisp through winter. The Amish grind the roots by hand or with a simple grater, usually outside or in a well-ventilated shed, because the fumes are powerful. Once crushed, the root releases a sharp, nose-clearing scent that can make your eyes water. That strong smell is part of why it's so useful. Horseradish is added to meats, pickles, and sauces to give food extra kick. But more than that, it's used as natural medicine. When someone catches a cold or has stuffed-up sinuses, a small spoonful of fresh horseradish can clear the head faster than many store-bought pills. Some mix it with honey or vinegar to make it easier to take. Others make a homemade tonic to sip during flu season. It's also known to help with digestion and boost energy, something that matters a lot during dark, cold winters when people need all the strength they can get. Because it stores well and keeps its strength for months, horseradish is a smart plant to grow. It needs little care once it's in the ground and comes back year after year from leftover roots. That means one planting can last for seasons. In Amish homes, horseradish isn't just a garnish. It's a healing food, a fiery protector, and a reminder that the earth gives more than meals. It gives medicine, too. Turnips don't get much attention, but in Amish communities, they're one of the most useful crops a family can grow. Why? Because they feed both people and animals, and they do it quickly, cheaply, and with very little fuss. Turnips are planted early in spring, right after the last frost. They grow fast. Some are ready to pull in just 6 weeks. The roots swell under the soil, forming round, white, or purple balls. Above ground, the leafy tops stretch out like a small patch of wild greens. The first harvest is for the family. The roots are tender and tasty when fresh. They can be roasted, boiled, mashed, or even sliced raw for salads. The leaves, called turnip greens, are also cooked down like spinach and added to meals for extra flavor and vitamins. After the first batch is picked, many Amish families plant more. By the end of summer, there's a second harvest ready, this time usually for the animals. Turnips are one of the few crops that can be used from top to bottom. Leftover roots are chopped up and fed to pigs or cows. The greens, once wilted or past their prime, go to chickens or compost. This reduces waste and saves money on feed, especially in winter when pasture grasses are gone. Some Amish even leave extra turnips in the ground, letting the animals dig them up when needed. Others store the roots in barrels or bins filled with sawdust in their barns, pulling out what's needed each day to stretch their winter supplies. Turnips also help the soil. After they're harvested, the ground is left loose and rich with nutrients, ready for the next season's crops. That's why Amish farmers often rotate turnips with other vegetables. They keep the land healthy. They're not fancy. They don't last as long as some root crops, but they're fast, flexible, and feed many mouths. In a community where every crop must earn its place, turnips win because they do double duty. In a single season, one patch of turnips can feed a family, support the animals, and prepare the soil for what comes next. That's the kind of smart growing the Amish rely on, not just for meals, but for the survival of the whole homestead. Sweet potatoes aren't just a holiday food in Amish homes, they're a smart, dependable crop that lasts through the entire winter. Unlike white potatoes, sweet potatoes are packed with natural sugar, which makes them tasty and comforting on cold days. But what really makes them special is how long they can last without needing a fridge or fancy storage. Amish families plant sweet potato slips, small shoots from mature potatoes, early in the growing season, usually once the soil has warmed up. The vines grow fast and wide, crawling across gardens, soaking in sunlight, and building energy underground. By the time fall comes around, the roots beneath the soil have turned into fat, sweet tubers ready to be harvested. But timing is everything. Sweet potatoes must be dug up before the first frost hits, or the cold can ruin them. Amish farmers usually watch the weather closely and start digging on a dry day. Once out of the ground, the tubers aren't just thrown into storage, they're cured first. Curing means leaving the sweet potatoes in a warm, humid place for about 10 days. This process helps toughen their skin and boost the sweetness inside. After curing, the sweet potatoes are carefully stored in cool, dark basements. These spaces stay steady in temperature, keeping the tubers fresh, soft, and safe from rot. Once winter rolls in, sweet potatoes become a regular part of meals. They're roasted, mashed, fried into chips, or added to soups and stews. Amish mothers often bake them whole and top them with homemade butter or molasses. Some even turn them into sweet potato pies or bread for special occasions. Because they're high in fiber, vitamins, and natural sugars, sweet potatoes give energy and warmth when the days are short and cold. They help keep everyone full and feeling well, even when the garden outside is covered in snow. They're also a crop that stores quietly. No noise, no power needed, just smart care and good timing. For the Amish, sweet potatoes are more than a treat. They're a reliable food that starts in spring, grows all summer, and gives back during the hardest months of the year. All it takes is a basement, a good harvest, and a little patience. Tiny, round, and packed with flavor, Brussels sprouts are one of the toughest vegetables in the Amish garden. They don't just survive the cold, they thrive in it. That's why Amish families plant them in spring, long before the last frost, and let them grow slowly over the entire season. Brussels sprouts grow on tall stalks with dozens of mini cabbage-like heads lined up neatly along the stem. While they take longer to mature than most vegetables, the wait is worth it. These sprouts actually taste better after a frost. The cold turns some of the starches into sugar, making them sweeter and less bitter. By late fall, the stalks stand tall in the garden, even as other plants fade away. Amish families have a choice. They can harvest the sprouts and store them in cool wooden crates in their cellars, or they can leave the stalks right in the ground. That's the amazing part. Brussels sprouts can freeze on the stalk and still stay good. During winter, families often go out and snap off just what they need for dinner. The frozen sprouts are brought inside, thawed, and cooked in cast iron pans or baked with butter and herbs. They hold their shape and taste even after freezing. No electricity needed. Brussels sprouts are also full of vitamins that help boost the immune system, something important during flu season when fresh food is harder to find. They're often cooked alongside meats tossed into soups or roasted with root vegetables for a warm, filling meal. Because the plants grow tall and strong, they don't take up much room in the garden. That means more food in less space, a big win when every patch of dirt matters. Some Amish families plant different varieties of sprouts to stretch the harvest even longer. Others save the leaves for livestock feed or compost, so nothing goes to waste. These little green sprouts may look simple, but they're built for tough times. Grown slowly, sweetened by frost, and strong enough to stand in the snow, Brussels sprouts are proof that even the smallest foods can have big power when the cold winds blow. Most people eat peas fresh or from a can, but the Amish take a different path. They grow a special kind of pea called shelling peas, not for snacking in summer, but for drying and storing through the winter. These dried peas become the heart of one of the most filling cold weather meals, thick, hearty pea soup. It all starts in early spring. As soon as the soil can be worked, Amish gardeners plant rows of shelling peas. These peas grow in pods just like the kind found in backyard gardens, but instead of picking them young and sweet, the Amish let them fully ripen. That means leaving the pods on the vine until they become dry, brittle, and slightly yellow. It may not look pretty, but that's the goal. Once the pods are dry, they're carefully picked and brought inside. The peas are shelled by hand or with a simple tool, and the round, hard seeds inside are spread out to finish drying. No fancy machine, no chemicals, just patience and dry air. When stored in glass jars or cloth sacks in a cool, dry pantry, these peas can last over a year. They're lightweight, easy to carry, and require no refrigeration, making them perfect for the Amish way of life. In the coldest months, these dried peas come out of storage and into the kitchen pot, simmered slowly with water, salt, onions, and sometimes a bit of pork or smoked meat. They turn into a warm, thick soup that fills the stomach and keeps the cold away. The soup sticks to the ribs and gives energy to handle long days of work, even in freezing weather. Pea soup is also easy to stretch. A handful of dried peas can feed several people when cooked the right way. That makes it perfect for big families and tight supplies, and nothing is wasted. Leftover pods go into compost or animal feed. Some families save the best peas for next year's planting, keeping the cycle going without ever stepping into a store. Shelling peas aren't flashy, but they're reliable. Grown in spring, dried in summer, and eaten in winter, they turn a simple seed into a survival food that's both practical and comforting. Salsify is one of the strangest vegetables most people have never heard of. It doesn't look like much, just a long, thin root covered in brown skin. But once cooked, it tastes like oysters. That's why some people call it oyster root. For the Amish, it's a rare treat that adds something special to winter meals. This plant is old-fashioned and slow-growing. Amish families plant salsify seeds early in the spring, giving them a long growing season. The plant grows tall green leaves above the ground while the real prize grows below, a slender white root that builds flavor and nutrients all summer long. Unlike carrots or beets, salsify isn't harvested in summer or even early fall. It's left in the soil, sometimes all the way into winter. That's because it gets better with cold. A few frosts actually improve the flavor, making the roots sweeter and more tender. When it's time to dig them up, usually in late fall or early winter, the roots are pulled from the ground carefully. They're washed, trimmed, and stored in damp sand or sawdust in cool cellars, or simply left in the ground until needed. That's the beauty of salsify. It stores itself. Once in the kitchen, salsify is peeled and boiled, roasted, or mashed. The taste surprises most people. Mild, creamy, and slightly like seafood. Amish cooks often slice it into soups or fry it in butter with herbs. It's not a food they eat every day, but when they do, it brings something rich and rare to the table. Salsify also has health benefits. It's full of fiber and helpful for digestion. In a season when people eat heavier meals, that matters. It helps balance the diet naturally without needing pills or packaged food. Growing salsify takes patience. The seeds are slow to sprout, and the roots can take over 100 days to mature. But for families that plan ahead and know its value, it's worth the wait. It's the kind of crop that proves old doesn't mean useless. It means tested and trusted. In Amish gardens, salsify may grow quietly in the corner, but come winter, it earns its place with rich flavor and old-world charm. It's not just food, it's a hidden gem from the soil, meant for those who still grow with care. Scallions, also known as green onions, might be small, but in Amish homes, they pack a big punch, especially when it comes to food that has to last all winter. These thin, early spring onions are more than just a garnish. They're a key ingredient in flavoring canned meats, pickled vegetables, and other preserved foods that fill pantry shelves when fresh produce is long gone. Amish gardeners plant scallions as soon as the ground begins to thaw. They grow quickly in cool weather and don't take up much space. Within weeks, long green shoots start rising from the soil. The white bulbs below stay small and tender, which is exactly how the Amish want them. Unlike big onions that are stored or dried, scallions are usually used fresh. They're chopped finely and added to jarred goods in small amounts, but even just a few pieces can add bold flavor. When pickling cucumbers, carrots, or beets, a handful of sliced scallions brings out a sharp, tangy taste. When pressure canning meat, they help cut the heaviness and make the meat more savory and satisfying. These little onions are also added to relishes, sauces, and homemade broths. They work well with vinegar, garlic, and other preserving ingredients, helping the flavors blend and deepen over time. Even months later, when a jar is opened in the middle of winter, the smell and taste of scallions bring back a touch of spring. Because they grow fast and don't need much care, scallions are planted more than once during the season. Many Amish families harvest them in bunches every few weeks, using some immediately and saving others for the next round of preserving. Scallions don't store like other vegetables. They're too soft to last long on their own, but by sealing their flavor into canned goods and pickles, the Amish stretch their usefulness far beyond harvest day. In homes without modern refrigeration, smart flavor matters. Scallions may be small, but they add big taste to meals that would otherwise be plain. Grown early, used quickly, and sealed in jars, they prove that even the humblest plants have a powerful role to play in a winter survival plan. Potatoes are a basic food in many homes, but the Amish don't just grow any kind. They choose red potatoes for a reason. These firm, smooth-skinned potatoes may be smaller than russets, but they hold their shape better and store longer, making them perfect for boiling, stewing, and especially pressure canning. In spring, Amish farmers plant seed potatoes in rich, loose soil. Red potatoes grow under the surface, quietly building up starch and flavor as the vines above reach for the sun. These potatoes grow fast and are often ready to harvest by midsummer, but for long-term use, they're usually left in the ground a little longer to harden their skins. Once dug up, the red potatoes are sorted carefully. The best ones are saved for meals during the fall and winter. The rest are cleaned and canned using pressure cookers. The Amish pack them in jars with just water and a bit of salt, then seal them tightly so they'll last for months. What makes red potatoes special is their texture. They don't fall apart when boiled, even after being canned. That means they're perfect for stews, soups, or quick side dishes on busy winter days. Just open a jar, heat, and serve. No peeling or chopping needed in the freezing cold. They're also great roasted or mashed and can be combined with meats and other canned vegetables for hearty one-pot meals. Some Amish families can them together with carrots, onions, or even green beans for ready-made stews straight from the shelf. Beyond their cooking benefits, red potatoes store naturally well too. In a cool, dark cellar, they stay fresh for months without sprouting or turning soft. That gives families even more flexibility. Some for the cellar, some for the jars, and some for immediate meals. And like many Amish crops, nothing goes to waste. Peels go to the compost. Leftovers feed chickens. Even small or oddly shaped potatoes get used in soups or animal feed. Red potatoes may not be as flashy as other foods, but their reliability makes them a favorite in Amish kitchens. Grown with care, preserved with skill, and used with purpose, they help carry families through the cold months, one warm meal at a time. Rhubarb is one of the first plants to show life after a long, cold winter. Its thick red stalks and wide green leaves push through the soil in early spring, a sign that the growing season has begun. For the Amish, rhubarb isn't just a garden plant. It's a multi-use, long-lasting ingredient that brings tart flavor to sweet winter treats. The great thing about rhubarb is that it comes back every year. Once planted, it grows stronger with each season. Amish families often have the same rhubarb patch for decades. In late spring, they begin harvesting the stalks, cutting them low, and letting the plant keep producing into early summer. The leaves are tossed aside. They're not safe to eat, but the stalks are the treasure. Rhubarb has a bold, sour taste, which makes it perfect for mixing with sugar in pies, cobblers, and jams. While some families use it fresh, most prepare it for winter by chopping the stalks into small pieces and freezing them. The stalks are packed in freezer bags or containers, then stored in cold cellars or ice houses, ready to be used months later. When winter comes and the garden is quiet, rhubarb brings a pop of brightness. It's pulled from the freezer, mixed with flour, butter, and sugar, and baked into warm desserts that fill the home with sweet smells. It's also cooked into thick jams and preserves that sit on Amish pantry shelves, waiting for a cold morning when they'll be spread on homemade bread. Some families also make rhubarb sauce, which is sweet and tart and can be used on pancakes or stirred into yogurt. Even a small harvest can be stretched into dozens of uses. The plant itself needs very little care. It grows in the same spot year after year and resists most pests. Amish gardeners keep it mulched and sometimes divide the roots to start new plants for family or neighbors. Rhubarb isn't a main course, but it makes winter feel special. A simple stalk, grown in spring, frozen with care, and turned into something warm and sweet in January. That's how the Amish turn ordinary plants into comfort that lasts through the coldest months. When people think of radishes, they often picture the small, round, spicy ones that show up in summer salads. But the Amish grow a different kind, winter radishes. These are larger, tougher, and built for storage. One of the most common is the black Spanish radish, a variety that can last for months with no refrigeration. Winter radishes are planted in spring just like their smaller cousins, but instead of pulling them early, Amish farmers leave them in the soil much longer. Over time, the roots grow big and firm, often the size of a small potato. Their skins darken and thicken, forming a natural barrier against cold and rot. By late fall, when most vegetables are long gone, these radishes are finally harvested. They're pulled up by hand, washed, and packed into crates or wooden bins. Then they're stored in root cellars where the temperature stays cool and steady. With proper care, they stay crisp and edible all the way through winter, and sometimes even into spring. These radishes have a strong, spicy flavor but mellow out when cooked. The Amish slice them into soups, shred them into slaws, or roast them with other root vegetables. Some families pickle them with vinegar and spices to create a crunchy snack that's full of flavor and long-lasting. Winter radishes are also used for more than food. Some Amish use them to help with digestion or as a natural remedy for coughs and colds. Their strong taste and dense texture make them feel like they're doing something good for the body. They're also easy to grow and require little care once established. The tough skin helps them fight off pests, and the deep roots pull up nutrients from the soil that other plants might miss. Like many Amish crops, winter radishes are chosen for their usefulness, not their beauty. They don't wilt quickly, they don't need a fridge, and they don't cost much to grow. Just good seed, good soil, and time. In the heart of winter, when fresh food is hard to come by, a thick-skinned radish from the root cellar reminds families of the harvest that came before and the smart choices that help them get through another cold season. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are one of the most overlooked survival foods the Amish grow. They don't look like much, knobby tan roots that resemble ginger. But beneath their rough skin is a nutty, slightly sweet tuber that's easy to grow, stores well, and makes a great substitute for potatoes all winter long. In spring, Amish families plant chunks of the tubers directly into the soil. Above ground, the plants grow surprisingly tall, sometimes reaching 8 feet high, with yellow flowers that look like small sunflowers. While the tops look nice, the real harvest is hidden deep below the surface. Sunchokes grow quietly through spring and summer. By fall, their roots are ready to be dug up. But here's the best part. They don't need to be harvested all at once. Amish families often leave them in the ground until they're ready to eat. The cold doesn't hurt them. In fact, frost makes the flavor better by turning some of the starch into sugar. When dug up, sunchokes can be stored in cold basements or root cellars in boxes filled with sand or sawdust. They'll stay crisp and edible for weeks. Or, if the ground hasn't frozen solid, families simply dig them fresh as needed. In the kitchen, sunchokes are boiled, roasted, mashed, or added to soups and stews. Their taste is somewhere between a potato and a sunflower seed. They cook faster than potatoes and are lighter on the stomach, which is helpful after heavy winter meals. They're also good for gut health. Sunchokes are full of a type of fiber called inulin, which supports digestion. But for some people, that fiber can cause gas, so Amish cooks usually introduce them slowly in small amounts. The plant itself is low maintenance. Once it's planted, it comes back every year and even spreads, so much so that it has to be controlled so it doesn't take over the garden. Sunchokes aren't flashy, they're not sold in shiny packages or found in every kitchen, but for Amish families, they're dependable, easy to grow, and always ready, hidden underground until the family needs them. When winter hits and fresh vegetables are long gone, one food still sits strong on Amish shelves: heirloom squash. Varieties like Hubbard, butternut, and acorn squash are chosen not just for their rich taste, but for their thick, protective skins that let them last for months without refrigeration. These squash are planted in spring once the soil is warm. The vines need plenty of space to spread, so they're usually grown in wide garden rows or near fence lines where they can climb and sprawl. Over the summer, the plants grow large, with bright orange or green fruits forming slowly and steadily. As fall comes, the Amish wait for the perfect moment to harvest. The skin must be hard, so hard that you can't pierce it with a fingernail. That's what locks in the moisture and keeps bacteria out. After picking, the squash are cured by leaving them in a warm, dry place for a week or two. This step is key. It seals the skin and helps them last even longer. Once cured, these squash don't need a fridge, freezer, or canning jar. They simply sit on open shelves, in pantries, or under beds. As long as they're kept cool, dark, and dry, they can last for 4 to 6 months, or even longer. In winter, they're turned into all kinds of meals. Amish families roast them with butter and spices, mash them like sweet potatoes, or mix them into casseroles and soups. Some even bake them into pies or muffins. The natural sweetness and soft texture make them a comfort food that feels rich but comes straight from the garden. The seeds inside are saved, dried, and replanted the next spring. Another reason heirloom varieties are preferred. These aren't just food, they're a living tradition, passed down and replanted year after year. The thick skin that makes them last also makes them tough to cut, but once opened, their orange flesh is soft, flavorful, and packed with vitamins that help keep people strong during the long, dark winter. In a world where most vegetables spoil in a week, heirloom squash stands out. Grown with patience, stored with no power, and eaten with gratitude, it's one of the Amish's most powerful tools for winter survival. While the rest of the world waits for winter with a shopping list and a credit card, the Amish face it with something far more powerful: preparation rooted in the soil. They don't panic when the temperature drops. They don't worry when the shelves are bare. Why? Because long before the first snowflake falls, they've already packed their pantries, filled their cellars, and stocked their hearts with the quiet confidence that only comes from self-sufficiency. But none of that starts in winter, and it begins in spring. While others are still thawing out and chasing the latest gardening trend, the Amish are planting purposefully. Every row they dig, every seed they press into the earth is a quiet promise to their future. These aren't trendy superfoods. They're not grown for Instagram. They're grown to last, to heal, to nourish, to carry families through the darkest, coldest nights of the year without a single dependence on a machine or a modern convenience. Let's go back and look again. They plant hardneck garlic because it's tough, flavorful, and stores like a champion. Something you can hang in your barn rafters and still be cooking with when the snow is knee-deep. They grow dent corn not for sweet summer eating, but to dry and grind into cornmeal that becomes mush, bread, and hot cereal on freezing January mornings. Beets go into root cellars packed in sawdust and still taste fresh months later. Heirloom cabbages become jars of sauerkraut that not only last the winter, but boost the immune system during flu season. And then there's pie pumpkins, rich, dense, and perfectly suited for the pantry shelf, waiting to become pies, soups, and spreads when nothing else is growing outside. They plant winter keeper carrots, bred not for size or shine, but for strength. Carrots that hold their crunch long after the garden has frozen over. They grow dry soup beans for a reliable source of meatless protein, and parsnips that sweeten themselves naturally after a touch of frost. Even horseradish, hot and fiery, is more than flavor. It's medicine, a root that clears your sinuses when modern pills run out. And turnips, which feed not just people but animals too, making every harvest do double duty. Sweet potatoes cure on racks and sleep in basements, only to wake up as warm side dishes when everything else is gone. Brussels sprouts stay standing even in snowdrifts, turning sweeter as the cold deepens. Shelling peas, carefully dried and stored, become thick, comforting soups when the world outside is frozen solid. Then there's salsify, a root most people don't even recognize, tasting like oysters and hidden in the soil until winter meals need something rare and special. Scallions, small and fast-growing, bring big flavor to jars of pickles and canned meats. Red potatoes, chosen because they hold their shape, become staples in winter stews and pressure-canned meals. Rhubarb gives late spring tartness that's frozen and saved for December pies. Winter radishes like black Spanish sit in bins for months, ready to add spice to meals long after harvest ends. And Jerusalem artichokes, tough and humble, wait beneath the ground or in root cellars to become potato substitutes when shelves are empty. Finally, there's the silent hero, heirloom squash. Thick-skinned and patient, it rests on pantry shelves like it's guarding a secret, one that can be turned into warm, filling dinners long after the garden is buried under snow. This is more than just food. This is a system, a way of life, a rhythm tied to the seasons, not the supermarket. It's about foresight, simplicity, and resilience. The Amish aren't just growing vegetables. They're growing security. They're growing independence. They're growing proof that a family can thrive without depending on modern supply chains, electricity, or digital alerts. In a world where most people don't know where their food comes from, where panic buying is normal and waste is expected, the Amish show us another way, a way where every meal tells a story of patience. Every jar on the shelf reflects months of quiet planning. Every bite in January was earned back in April, May, or June. So maybe it's time we slow down and pay attention. What if your spring garden could feed you all winter? What if your shelves, not your freezer, held the key to peace of mind when times get hard? If this journey through Amish growing and storing practices sparked something in you, if it made you think, made you curious, or reminded you that we can still return to the roots, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What food on this list surprised you the most? Which one would you try growing in your own garden next spring? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Your words might just inspire someone else to dig a little deeper, literally. And if you want to keep learning the old ways, the smart ways, the lasting ways, hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning of a much bigger journey, and you won't want to miss what comes next.